City Tattoos, part 2 on coils. In the first video, we went over cutting the round stock, turning it on the lathe, tapping and drilling the core, insulating it, making insulated washers, and then winding the actual coil. In the second part video, we're going to go over how to take those coils and wire them up. Now, even if you buy your own coils already made, you can disregard the entire rest of the video, but this part you might want to hang on to, because you buy a set of coils, you go to try to tune your machine up, you take them off and they fucking break or something, or a capacitor blows out, or you got a short in there somewhere. This is going to show you how to troubleshoot that and how to repair those coils without having to just toss them in the trash and buy another set. So go ahead and pay attention to this part. If you don't make them or anything else, or you don't think you ever want to do anything with coils besides buy some, at least this here will show you how to repair some coils that you have. Okay, well, let's get started. Part 2. Some tools you're going to need for coils. Obviously the coils. Those help. Anyway, I use combo heads on all my stuff, so I use a little Phillips screwdriver, razor. These are solder lugs. Make sure you get copper ones, don't get brass or tin. Okay, get copper. Copper is more conductive. If you've seen any of my other videos, copper is more conductive, and I always recommend you to get copper. Caliper, okay, various size of shrink tubing, solder gun. Yeah, that's a big hole. It's okay. Capacitors of, real quick on capacitors. Typically there's 22s, 47s, and that's what generally people use right now. And I do the same, except on color packers and stuff. I might do some varying sizes of capacitor. But basically, you want to keep in mind there's the radial lead capacitor and there's the axial lead capacitor. The differences are not in the capacitor itself, but in the way that the leads come out. This one comes out to the side, and these leads here come out of the bottom. Okay, depending on the type of frame that you have, or how you're wiring your coils, you may opt for the one that's the radial or axial lead, that comes spread out like a big Tootsie Roll. You may want that. These here, if you have room for it, it's just different on the different frame that you're using. One might fit better than the other on how you're wiring it, and things like that. So, but anyway, they're both 47. Well, this is a 22. And the numbers on the capacitors, the smaller the number, the faster the capacitor builds its charge in cycles. The bigger the number, the slower it is. So this is more in line for a liner, and this is more in line for a shader. But you can use, that's a whole other video. You've already seen my other videos on capacitors, stuff like that. So anyway, pair of scissors, lighter or sandpaper, solder, flux, and this here I use, it's just a little jig. It allows me to put the coils on here, bolt them down like it was a frame, and then I'm able to wire them while they're on the jig itself, and that's just more helpful for me. So I don't have coils flopping all over while I'm trying to do it. But anyway, first thing I'm going to do is, we've got 2 coils here. Doesn't matter if you buy coil cores and you're going to wind them, or if you make your own coil cores. You need to know, before you do anything else, there's always, none of these are 1.25 even, 1.25 exactly. There's always some variance between coils, coil core heights. Okay, so you know that if you're tattooing, your armature bar needs to hit your front coil first and flat. So you need to find out which of these two coils is the taller one, even if it's by just a fraction of an inch. You need to know which one is higher. Okay, so because that's going to be your front coil. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and measure. This is 1, 2, 4. Okay. Let me zero it again. I get paranoid, so let me zero it again and try it. 1, 2, 4, 10. Okay. Let's check the other one. Zero my caliper back out. 1, 2, 4, 10. 1, 2, 4, 2, 0. This is the taller one. This one's going to go in the front. Okay. You can always shim the back coil up, but this one's going to go in the front. Now we've got 2 leads coming out of this coil. We talked about that in the first video. One is your start wind. It's the one that's closest to the coil core. The other one's your end wind. It's the furthest out from the coil core. Okay. Your start wind, this is the front coil. Okay, I'm going to put it on my jig. Okay, because it just helps me out. So you might not want to do this. You might want to do it. It's just something I do. You don't have to do it. But it allows me to keep them tight together while I'm doing wiring. It's just easier for me. And that's what matters. Okay, so we know this is our front coil. And we know this is our back coil. What I'm looking for is both start leads, which means both holes that are closest to the coil core are going to be in the front, because those are your 2 wires that when you're looking at your machine, those are the 2 little short wires that are twisted together in the front. Let me give you an example. This here, these are the 2 start leads, okay? Those are in the front. So, that being said, let's find the start lead on here. Okay. Put my little shim in here with my washer and put this on my jig. Put it on my jig. My dance little jig. Not really. I'm not a dancer. I'm more of a lover. Okay. Alright. Now that we've got a mess of odd looking stuff. So far we've measured, we've determined this is our front coil, this is our rear coil. 2 start leads are in the front. These are the 2 end leads, okay? Well, these obviously we know we need to trim them down because they're a little fucking long, okay? Cut those bad boys off just like that, okay? Take me a lighter. This enamel will burn right off. Okay. Do a little burn. Do a little burn. Now that black residue, solder will not bind to that. So, take your little razor blade and just lightly, or a little sandpaper, whatever you want to do, a little razor blade or a sandpaper, and get that off. Okay, until it's shiny again. Okay. Once it's shiny again, ensure that you don't just do one side, do all the way around the wire. That way you get a good, clean, conductive path for the current to flow. Okay. Okay. Now you know by doing so many of these fucking things that I'm going to trim these. This is going to go up to your front binding post. Okay. So I'm going to cut that right there. It's going to go to my rear binding post. Okay. I'm going to cut that right there. Okay. So front of the machine, these are twisted together. This goes up to the front binding post. This goes to the rear binding post. Okay. Yay. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is take a couple pieces of shrink tubing, and I've got all different colors of this and all different sizes and big spools, but I'm going to cut 2 quick pieces of this off. Okay, set them there. I'm going to slide them on here, That one's a little long. And also on a good set of coils. Depends on where you're buying them. When you first wind these coils, you can run this tubing through this hole, okay? But this hole here, or these insulating washers that I'm using, are plastic, so they're not going to scuff, or they're not going to, you know, damage this wire. But this shrink tubing can go inside those holes when you drill out your insulating washers. Anyway, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and heat this just a little bit, the shrink tubing, just a little bit. And I'm going to push it back and roll it. Okay. Same on this one. Okay, push it back a little bit and roll it. Okay. Now I'm going to do, get your 2 front leads, your 2 start winds, get them together. Good clean copper showing, a little solder, a little flux. Okay. Get you a nice bead of silver solder laid on there. Okay. Just like that. Now we're going to take another piece of shrink tubing that's slightly larger than the one we started with. We started with this. We're going to move up to this. So one fits over the smaller, so they look nice and clean. Okay. I'm going to slide this over. Pinch these together a little bit. Slide this over. Okay. I'm going to heat this up. Okay, I'm going to bend that excess over and pinch it together. Now I've got my front 2 start wind leads together. Okay. Nice and clean. Now, back is a little bit more work. I'm going to go ahead and clean these leads off real quick. This goes to the front binding post, rear binding post, and these are both, even though they're going to 2 different places, they're both your end wind lead, which means the lead that came off where you stopped winding the coil, where we cut it in video 1, it was the part we were left with at the end. Okay, so clean this up a little bit. Since we're going to be, in this video, I'm going to use this type of capacitor, this radial lead capacitor. You can always tell, you should always have the positive, you know, going toward the contact screw front binding post. You can always tell on here which one is the positive lead, because on this radial lead capacitor, the positive lead is always the longer lead. Plus, the other one has a big old fucking minus sign right next to it. So, but you know, that just helps you identify which way it goes. Now, keep in mind, if you turn these backwards, these are non-polarized. So it doesn't matter if you have a non-polarized capacitor. I mean, if you have a polarized capacitor, it doesn't matter which way the current flows. It's not going to blow up. If it's, you know, polarized, then you'll have to run your positive and negative on your clip cord the correct way. But if it's non-polarized, you can go either way. You can install it either way you want to. You know, I've installed them many different ways, and I've yet to find one blow up. Okay, the things that will make these blow up is heat and going over the voltage. Anyway, this type of capacitor also, you need to cut you a couple lead wires off that will run up to the front and rear binding post. Okay, about that long. Okay, then strip you some wire off, or burn the enamel off the the wire. Okay. We'll take and we'll scrape it clean. There we go. Get it clean as you can because it just gives you a good good connection, good current flow, good solder, good strong solder joint. Okay. Now, with this is what I do on these. I'll get my solder and I'll put it on my flux and I'll put it on the ends of the wire. And on these, just to give it a little more strength, I'll wrap these around the leg like this. Before I solder it, I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'll wrap it like that, just so that when I do solder this, I've got a lot of the wire wrapped around the leg and not just soldering as opposed to taking it and soldering it just like this. This is a weaker way to solder it. I like it this way because it's twisted on there and it's a little stronger. So, that being said, we'll solder this rascal up. Okay. That's all it takes, just like that. Okay. From there, I take and slide my shrink tubing all the way up here. Get this little burr off of here real quick. Get the little burr off. There we go. Okay, slide my shrink tubing back up over the top. All the way up here. And then what I do to prevent it from sliding back down, this one here is going toward the front binding post. So this knot that I've created a fairly thick solder joint, and that prevents it from really sliding down too much. If you don't do that, you can always heat it up and then pinch it, and then that'll keep it from sliding down and exposing any bare wire. So anyway, okay, this is how this is going to sit. So we want to make our wires match in length. Okay, so cut that, remove the enamel, clean it up. Okay. Dip it in the flux. You can do this one of two ways. I like a pretty clean solder right here. I don't want a big knot of solder up on that solder lug so that it makes your front binding post ride crooked once you tighten it to the frame. So this is what I do. Now we'll solder this whole joint. Just like that. Let it cool. Okay. While that's cooling and I get my solder lug ready, I'm going to grab a piece of shrink tubing. We're going to slide the shrink tubing on before we put our solder lug on, because the shrink tubing is narrower than the solder lug. You won't get this shrink tubing over the solder lug. Okay. Dip the solder lug in the flux. Okay. We'll get a little solder on it. You don't need a big old knot of it. Okay, just a little. Okay. You can, now if you notice on these solder lugs there is a hole in it. Okay, you can run your wire through the hole if you want. I don't generally do that, but you can. It makes it a little more secure, but it also, you have to worry about that little knot. Okay, that's soldered on there. And we'll slide our shrink tubing up, just like that. And I'll heat it just enough to get it pliable. And there's our front solder lug on our front binding post, okay? Now, what we've got left is the rear. Trash. Same process over here. Okay, we're going to cut enough length off of here to make sure that it goes from the lead of the capacitor to where the rear solder lug would be. Okay, so we're just going to cut, this much off. Take a little bit of the enamel off. You could do this with sandpaper too. It doesn't have to be a lighter, but it's whatever you prefer. Sometimes I use sandpaper. Depends what's in front of me, Whatever method you use, just make sure you get the soot off of the wire, that's all. If you either get the soot off of it, or if you use the sandpaper, make sure you get all the enamel off. So, either method, just make sure you leave it with a really clean copper wire showing through. Okay. 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 Now that's soldered on there, we'll grab our other piece of long shrink tube, slide it up onto this capacitor lead. Okay. I could trim that shrink tube down just a little bit to expose a little bit more of the wire. Otherwise, if you don't, when you go to heat your solder, you go to heat your wire up with the tip of the solder gun, you're going to melt that shrink tube and you're going to make a mess. Okay. So now we're about matched up here in length. Okay. We'll take this, just give it a clean, tight twist, dip it in flux, dip it in the flux, a little solder. Get it on there. Okay. Okay. Get my other piece of shrink tube ready. About that much. Slide it up on here. And when you're doing this, I hold the back of the wires so that I don't kink them or bend them at the base of the coils. Okay. Now I hold it from the tip and then I'll pull it backwards. Get my other solder lug ready. Flux. The flux capacitor. Okay. See, those are the holes on there I was talking about. You could put them in the holes if you want. Solder that on there. It's soldered. Slide your shrink tubing up. Okay, give it a little bit of, put a little fire to it. Swing. Okay, now I have a wired set of capacitors. It's real simple. Okay, as long as your two start leads, your two start wind leads are in the front, attached together, and your two in-wind leads are in the rear. Then, one's going up to the front binding post, one's going to the rear binding post. So for a 10 wrap set, should be 1.9 ohms of resistance each, or for a wired set, it would be 3.8. Okay, and on here, hooking the multimeter up to this 10 wrap set, we're riding at 3.7. Okay, 3.7, 3.8, that's 1.9 times 2, or 3.8 for the wired set. So we're just right there on time. Okay, 1 ohm off. Ooh, these coils are run all day, every day, man. So there you have it. Wired set of 10 wrap coils, phenolic washers or insulating washers drilled out, heat shrunk, nice tight wraps. Super simple. Sin City Tattoos.